what you're saying here today, and it seems that this is an issue where I think Republicans and Democrats can certainly agree. We want to make sure that the taxpayer money is being used properly. I have a question relating to, can we, or if we can, how can we ensure that this money does not get into Taliban hands?
Well, currently, all funding, except I think a very small amount of humanitarian aid, has been stopped. So it's not getting into Taliban hands. But if the spigot is open, I'm sorry?
Yeah. No, sorry, please continue.
Yeah. If the spigot is opened, it's going to be difficult to do it, far more difficult, because we don't have people on the ground. There are ways to look at it, but the first thing we should consider is we should put conditions on it to make certain we have access, whether it's SIGAR or somebody else has access to books and records and remotely can monitor how it's being done. It's going to be extremely difficult. We had problems monitoring it even with a friendly, although incompetent Afghan and corrupt Afghan government. We will definitely have more problems, but you have to put those conditions on it, and you have to enforce the conditions. And we do not have a good track record on that. And we've highlighted that over the years. We did not really put strong conditions and hold the Afghans' feet to the fire on that. And I hope we've learned from that, and we realize if we give money to the Taliban, we're going to have to try to watch how the money's being spent.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that is why I pause when we are having this discussion about sending more money. As Inspector General, what kind of fraud have you seen? You've talked about waste. We know that there's been tons of waste. Any particular egregious examples of fraud that you can point to?
Oh, we saw it everywhere. I mean, probably the biggest and most talked about are the ghosts. Ghost soldiers, ghost police we saw over there, where the Afghan government was created out of whole cloth individuals that didn't exist. We ended up paying the salaries. We ended up not only paying the salaries, but we paid everything that went to supporting a soldier or a policeman. Likewise, the international bodies, and I know this subcommittee has jurisdiction over international organizations. We found the same problem with international organizations, where they were paying salaries or paying for things, and they didn't monitor or evaluate. And this in particular was very difficult for us because a lot of the international organizations wouldn't let us in to take a look at the books and records. So we saw that a lot. Fuel disappearing. Over 50% of the fuel we bought for the Afghan government, for their police, their soldiers, and for the government itself was stolen. 50%. And we had a wonderful case that I gave to President Ghani shortly after he was inaugurated. He said he was going to do something about it, where we saw price fixing to the tune of costing the U.S. taxpayer over $250 million extra on a $1 billion contract. He never did a thing on it, nor did his attorney general, nor did anyone else.
The same President Ghani who fled with $169 million, as was reported by the BBC and other outlets.
Well, we haven't proven that yet. We're looking into that. Actually, the committee, Oversight and Government Reform Committee, has asked us to look into that. But there are allegations, but not only with President Ghani. There are allegations with senior officials in their finance ministry, their central bank, and a number of other ministries walking off with millions of dollars. But again, those are just allegations.
Yes.
We have not confirmed any of those yet.
No, I appreciate that. What metrics can Congress put in place to ensure that the money's being spent appropriately, but also that they're getting the intended results along the way, so that way programs can be cut off or money can be diverted if we're not seeing intended results? Do you have any recommendations?
Well, we issued an entire report on that, and I don't think we have enough time in 23 seconds, but the monitoring and evaluation report that we issued earlier this year, I would highly recommend taking a look at that. We talk about the need for effective monitoring and evaluation, and it's got to be realistic, and you got to look at what the end result. We're pretty good at doing inputs and outputs, but never looking at the outcomes. And you have to hold state aid and DOD to having met the outcomes that they tell you they're supposed to result in. And if you don't, that's the biggest problem we saw. The ultimate monitoring and evaluation that was done in Afghanistan was at the end, because they falsified or ignored all the bad results on M&E for the years and years that we've been raising concerns. And the ultimate M&E, the ultimate monitoring evaluation was, could the Afghan government stand on its own? And we saw what the results were. If we had had effective monitoring evaluation, if we had actually held their feet to the fire over the last 10 years, I say we wouldn't have ended up where we are today with a non-existent Afghan government.
Thank you. And if it's happening there, it's happening in Yemen and Syria and Iraq, potentially in other countries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's not my job to look at those other countries, but
Sure.
I think take our report, and we have briefed state and aid on this, and I must say they are listening now, and take our report and see if they're doing it in these other countries. You raise an excellent point, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the vice chair of the committee,